I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Julia and I had been together for over a decade, married for 8 of those years. We had a pretty normal life, 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs, and a routine that felt safe and predictable. She was the classic type A wife, demanding, bitchy when things didn't go her way, but always polished and controlling. I loved her in my own way, or at least I thought I did. We had our fights, sure, but nothing that hinted at something as explosive as betrayal. Things started feeling off around the time our son, Ethan, began taking chess lessons. Julia had taken an interest, insisting it was for his development, but honestly, I didn't pay much attention at first. I was busy with work, traveling a lot, and I figured as long as she was taking care of everything at home, I didn't need to get involved. But then I started noticing little things. Her phone constantly buzzing when she thought I wasn't looking, late-night texts that she quickly shut down when I entered the room, and her suddenly acting extra busy on the days Ethan had his lessons. One night I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed the nanny cam I had installed in the bedroom. I had put it there mainly to keep an eye on the kids when I traveled, but I rarely checked the recordings unless something felt off. That night, I decided to look back at some clips just to see what was going on. What I saw made my stomach drop. Julia had been sneaking into our bedroom during her work calls, and I caught her with Michael, our son's chess instructor. It was like a scene from a damn soap opera. They were in our bed, and judging by the footage, they weren't just talking. No, they were doing more than that. Her hand was on his knee, and his hand was somewhere it shouldn't have been. They were engaged in a full-blown affair right under my nose, right in my own house. What was even worse, their movements weren't just careless, they were strategic. It was like they knew they were being watched but didn't care. Her lips were pressed to his neck, and I could see her trying to keep a straight face, like she was. Trying to hide her guilt but failing miserably. The way she looked at him, hot, desperate, and completely unfaithful, was something I never even imagined she was capable of. The rush I felt was a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak all rolled into one. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The woman I trusted with everything was screwing around with a guy who was supposed to teach my son how to think, not how to cheat on his own dad. It was one thing to suspect something, but to see it so clearly, so blatantly, was a punch to the gut. I sat there for a long time, replaying that footage over and over, trying to process what it all meant. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how. Part of me wanted to storm into the bedroom right then and there, tear everything apart, but another part told me to think this through first. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I kept looking at my phone, debating whether I should bring this up immediately or wait until I was calmer. But you don't get to choose when. Life shatters, it just happens, and you're left standing there trying to figure out what the hell to do next. I decided I couldn't let her keep lying and hiding. I had to hear her side, even if I already knew the truth. So I waited until she was back from running errands, pretending everything was normal. When she walked in, fresh makeup and that bitchy smirk she always used when she thought she was right, I snapped. I told her I knew everything. The videos, the secret meetings, the lies. Her reaction was instant. She rolled her eyes, tried to brush it off, and called me paranoid. Said I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her busy schedule, that it was just a mistake she was going to fix. But I saw her for what she was, an unfaithful bitch who had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. And that's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I felt this crazy mix of rage and sadness. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this in our own home, with our own child's teacher? It was like my entire world was crashing down, and all I wanted was to make sense of it. I knew then that whatever came next, it was going to change everything forever. After I confronted her that morning, Julia's reaction was exactly what I expected. She denied everything, called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her, and threw a tantrum about how I was ruining her life over some stupid suspicion. She kept telling me it was all a misunderstanding, that Michael was just helping Ethan with his chess and that I was blowing it out of proportion. But I wasn't born yesterday. I saw her desperation, her little flicker of guilt, and I knew this wasn't something I could brush off with her usual lies. I stayed quiet while she ranted, just watching her. Inside, I was boiling. I wanted to explode, to yell, to tear her apart. But I kept my composure, something I learned over the years. Instead, I told her I had proof. I told her I knew about her and Michael, that I had it all on the nanny cam. Her eyes widened for a second, but then she scoffed and said I was crazy, that I was making things up, that I was just jealous because she paid more attention to Ethan than to me lately. That's when I decided I had to play this smart. I told her I'd give her a chance to come clean, to confess what she did, and that I wasn't going to let her ruin everything without consequences. I was trying to buy time, but honestly, I was already planning my next move. I wanted her to realize that I knew that I wasn't just some naive husband. I was going to make her pay for what she did. Over the next few days, I kept a close eye on her. I installed more cameras, checked her phone, and started gathering all the evidence I needed. I also kept a journal, things she said, her movements, any signs of guilt or nervousness. Meanwhile, Julia's attitude got worse. She became bitchier, snapping at me over small things, trying to throw me off track. She'd lie about where she was going, who she was talking to. I could see her trying to hide her tracks, but it was clear she was panicked. The thing that really hit me hard was how she continued to lie about Michael. Every time I brought up the affair, she dismissed it, said I was imagining things, or accused me of not trusting her. That was her go-to move: deflect, deny, attack. She refused to admit anything, even when I had the footage. That made me more furious. How could she be so reckless, so shameless? But I knew I had to be patient. If I rushed in, I might blow everything. One night, I decided to lure her into a trap. I left some more evidence where she'd find it, like a screenshot of the nanny cam footage with her face in clear view. I wanted her to realize I was serious. When she saw it, her face went pale and she finally cracked. She started crying, saying it was a mistake, that she felt neglected, that Michael was just a distraction. She begged me for forgiveness, said she loved me, that she'd end it. The usual stuff. I listened, pretending to be calm, but inside I was seething. I knew her tears were just an act, a way to manipulate me. I'd heard enough lies. The thing was, I'd also started to feel a strange sense of clarity, like I was finally seeing her true face, the one I'd ignored for years. All the little signs, the bitchy attitude, the sneaking around, it all made sense now. She'd been cheating on me with the guy who was supposed to be teaching our son how to think, not how to fuck his teacher. So I decided I wasn't going to just walk away and pretend everything was fine. No, I wanted her to understand the full extent of her betrayal. I was determined to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. I told her I needed some time to think, to consider what I wanted, but I knew deep down that things were never going to be the same. I was done trusting her. That day, I realized I had to make a choice: stay and accept her lies, or fight back and reclaim what little dignity I had left. After she broke down and begged for forgiveness, claiming she loved me and that it was a mistake, I knew I had to act carefully. I didn't want to just blow up and ruin everything in a fit of rage, even though I was burning with anger. I knew better than to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Instead, I kept cool and started planning my next move. I needed her to realize I wasn't playing around anymore. I was serious about confronting her and making sure she paid for her betrayal. Over the next couple of days, I continued monitoring her, making sure I had every piece of evidence I could gather. I stayed off her radar as much as possible, pretending to go about normal life. Meanwhile, inside, I was simmering. I kept replaying what I saw on the nanny cam, the way she was so intimate with Michael, how her hand was on his leg, her lips on his neck, her eyes filled with lust. It was like watching my wife turn into a stranger before my eyes. One evening, I decided to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I wanted her to think she still had some control, that I was just a jealous husband overreacting. I casually brought up Ethan's chess lessons, threw in some questions about Michael, how he's doing, if she's still in contact. She gave vague answers, trying to brush me off, but I could tell she was nervous. That's when I decided to push a little further. I pulled out the evidence on my phone, showing her the screenshots from the footage, her face in full view, her hand on Michael's lap, the intimate moments caught on camera. Her reaction was priceless: shock, panic, then anger. She tried to deny it again, claiming I was stalking her, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining her life over some stupid, jealous streak. But I saw through her lies now. The game was up. Then I told her I knew everything: the affair, the secret meetings, the sneaking around. I told her I'd had enough of her bullshit, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I made it clear I was hurt, betrayed, and that I wasn't going to tolerate her lies. I told her I was considering what to do next, whether to divorce her or give her a chance to come clean and fix what she broke. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. Her face twisted with rage and frustration. She screamed at me, calling me insecure, crazy, and possessive. She accused me of trying to control her, of invading her privacy, as if I was the villain. But I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I'd seen enough. That night I realized I had to take control. Either she'd own up and fix this mess, or I'd walk away and start over. The next morning I woke up feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. I knew I was close to crossing a line, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I was tired of her lies, her manipulations, and her selfishness. I had pictures, videos, and enough proof to show others if I needed to. The betrayal cut deep, but I'd been through enough to know I had to do something drastic. I wasn't going to let her cheat, lie, and walk all over me anymore. I was starting to think about what my life would look like without her, and honestly, that thought scared me. But it also felt like a weight lifting. I was done being the naive husband who trusted a wife capable of such cruelty. That day I decided I wasn't going to hold back anymore. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, every lie, every sneak, every moment she thought was hidden. I sat her down in the living room, just the two of us, and pulled out my phone. I showed her the footage, the pictures from the nanny cam, the recordings of her and Michael in our bed. Her face turned ghostly pale. Her eyes darted around like she was trying to find an escape route. She tried to deny it again. Said I was paranoid, that I was just jealous because she was busy with Ethan and couldn't give me enough attention. She even had the nerve to call me insecure, accusing me of spying on her out of some irrational need to control her. I just stared at her and shook my head. I wasn't about to let her fool me anymore. I told her, flat out, that I knew all about her affair, that I wasn't going to be played like some fool anymore, and that her lies weren't going to work. Her reaction was pure rage mixed with hysteria. She started yelling, calling me a paranoid psycho, saying I was ruining her life over some stupid suspicion. She said I was insecure, that I was imagining things because I didn't trust her. But I'd had enough. I told her I was done listening to her BS, that I deserved the truth, and that I was sick of her pretending everything was fine when I knew she was sleeping with Michael behind my back. Then I dropped the bomb. I told her I saw her in our bed with him, that I had the footage right here on my phone. Her eyes widened with shock, then instantly darkened with anger. She tried to grab the phone, but I held it out of reach. I said, "You lied to me for months. You lied about everything, including Ethan's lessons. How could you do this? How could you cheat with someone who's supposed to be helping our son learn how to think, not how to fuck his teacher?" She screamed at me, spatting out some bullshit about how she was distraught, how I was controlling, how I didn't understand her busy schedule. I wasn't having it. I told her I was done. I told her I had enough proof to do whatever I wanted: expose her, take her to court, even tell Ethan about her cheating. And that I was seriously considering leaving her, because I couldn't stay married to someone who thought lying and cheating were acceptable. She looked like she was about to explode, but I kept my voice steady. I wanted her to understand that I was serious, that she had crossed a line from which there was no return. I told her I'd think about everything, about whether I wanted to stay or go, and that she should prepare herself for the consequences. That night, I slept with my phone nearby, feeling the weight of it all. I knew the next steps weren't going to be easy, but I also knew I had to do what was best for me and my kids. Watching her lie and deny and try to manipulate me had finally broken whatever little shred of trust I had left. I'd spent years trying to ignore the little signs, convincing myself it was just work stress or her bad mood, but now it was crystal clear. She'd been cheating on me with Michael, our son's chess instructor, and she didn't even care about hiding it anymore. I felt a strange calmness settle over me, mixed with a quiet fury. I wanted her to realize that I was no longer the naive husband she could walk all over. I was done playing that part. Whatever came next, I would handle it. But one thing was certain, my life was never going to be the same again. The days that followed were some of the most intense of my life. I kept a low profile, but inside I was constantly strategizing. Every time I looked at her, I saw her conceal her guilt behind that bitchy smirk, that defiant attitude that she always used when she knew she was in the wrong but refused to admit it. Her lies became more blatant, her attitude more hostile. She started throwing blame back at me, accusing me of controlling her, of invading her privacy like I was the villain here. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me anymore. I made up my mind that I needed to push her further, to force her to reveal herself completely. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, and I wasn't going to be played anymore. I decided to set a trap, one that would make her finally own up to her betrayal. That evening, I pretended to go out for a business dinner. I left my phone behind, but I had a plan. I'd installed a hidden app that allowed me to listen in on her phone calls remotely. I wanted to see if she'd slip up and talk about Michael when she thought I wasn't around. I also left some evidence in plain sight, an email draft I created that mentioned her affair just to see if she'd react. Within minutes of leaving, her behavior started changing. Her phone buzzed constantly, and she was nervously pacing around the house. Then I heard her on the phone, her voice sharp and trembling. She was talking to someone, and I could hear enough to realize it was Michael. She was planning how to cover her tracks, how to lie better about their lessons, and making excuses for her infidelity. That's when I knew I had her cornered. I didn't need to see her face, I just needed to know she was caught. When I returned home later that night, I confronted her directly. I told her I knew about her phone calls, her secret meetings, the way she'd been lying from day one. Her reaction was a mix of panic and anger. She snapped at me, accusing me of spying, of invading her privacy again, but I didn't care. I just looked her in the eye and said, "It's over, I've seen enough. You can't deny what you've done." Her face twisted into a sneer. She spat out that I was just jealous, that I had no right to accuse her of anything. She tried to turn it around, saying she was stressed, that I was overreacting, but I'd had enough of her bullshit. I told her that her lies were finally catching up with her, and that I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt. I told her I was planning to leave, that if she wanted to keep lying and cheating, she could do it alone. The worst part was her feeling entitled to stay defiant, like she still thought she could manipulate her way out of this. But I had the evidence, her own words, her own actions. I knew exactly who she was. I told her I was done being a fool. I told her she'd pushed me too far this time and she'd better start preparing for the fallout. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, thinking about what this all meant, about the future I never wanted to face. I was hurt, angry, betrayed, but also relieved. For so long, I'd been blindly trusting her, ignoring the signs. Now I saw her for what she truly was, a lying, cheating woman who thought she could get away with anything. That realization burned deep. I knew I'd have to decide whether to fight for the marriage or walk away for good. Either way, my sense of trust was shattered completely, and I felt like I was finally waking up from a nightmare I'd been blind to for too long. The days after that confrontation were brutal. Julia's temper flared, her bitchy attitude sharper than ever, and she doubled down on her lies, acting like I was the crazy one. She'd throw tantrums, scream at me about how I was ruining her life, how I was controlling her, and that I was just jealous because she was more successful than me. But I didn't care about her petty accusations anymore. Inside, I'd already made my decision. I was done. I packed some of my things, not because I wanted to leave immediately, but because I needed physical space to breathe. I sat her down one last time, telling her I was going to move out and that I was filing for divorce. I explained it wasn't about revenge, but about protecting myself and my kids from her toxic lies and betrayal. She tried to guilt-trip me, crying, saying she'd change, that she'd fix everything, but I knew better. I'd seen her real face now, and I wasn't about to be fooled again. The final blow came when I handed her a copy of all the evidence, the videos, the pictures, the texts, everything I'd collected over the past week. Her face drained of color as she realized she had no more cards to play. I told her that she had broken my trust beyond repair, and that I wasn't going to stay in a marriage built on lies and infidelity. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You cheated with our son's instructor, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. I don't want to see you again." The divorce papers were filed a few days later. Julia was furious, calling me every name in the book, trying to manipulate the situation, but I stayed firm. I knew I needed to do what was best for myself and my children. I moved out, finding a small apartment nearby so I could still be present for Ethan and my other son, Jake. It hurt like hell. Every day I wondered how I could have been so blind for so long. But deep down, I knew I'd done the right thing. The fallout was messy, of course. Julia's bitchy side showed fiercely in court, trying to spin everything in her favor, accusing me of being overly controlling, jealous, and unstable. But I didn't care. I had enough proof, enough clarity to stand my ground. I also made sure to get full custody of the kids, knowing she was unfit to be a stable mother with her constant lies and infidelity. Looking back, I realized this whole experience has changed me. I learned that trust is fragile, that people can hide their true selves behind a mask, and that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can start rebuilding. I don't regret exposing Julia. It hurt like hell, but it was necessary. I want others to know that if you're in a similar situation, trust is essential, but so is protecting yourself. Don't ignore the signs, don't let someone cheat behind your back, and don't be afraid to walk away when it's clear they don't deserve your loyalty. Life goes on, even after betrayal. I've started focusing on my kids, my career, and myself. I'll never forget what she did, but I refuse to let it define me. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the most painful truths are what finally set you free.